In this video, we're going to pick up with some more from example 3, some more matrix multiplications. Part C, we have a 3 by 2 matrix times a 2 by 2 matrix. So the number of columns in this first matrix is 2, equals the number of rows in the second matrix, which is 2, which we can multiply these, so we actually are able to multiply. Our matrix is going to have 3 rows by 2 columns. So we're going to need to make sure we have 3 rows and 2 columns in our answer. So once again, we will separate this into, here's I hat and j hat. So I hat is going to be this matrix, 2, -2, 5, and we got 4, 3, and 1, times this first column vector here, -3, 0. So it's going to be 3 times this column, and then plus 0 times this second column, which we know is just going to wipe that second column out. So at least that'll make the calculations easier. Which means our I hat ultimately is going to end up at 6, -6, and 15. So we have 6, -6, and 15 for I hat. Then j hat, same story with this 6, -2. So j hat, we're going to take this matrix again, this 3 by 2 matrix, 2, -2, 5. Wow, this is really not. 4. Oh boy, wow, this is really looking bad. 4, 3, and 1. The stylus needs a new tip. And we're going to multiply that by 6, -2. So we're going to take 6 times this first column. Let's see how the handwriting goes. Then -2, so -2, times this second column. And we can just do this individually here. We got 12 minus 8 is 4. -12 minus 6 is -18. And 30 minus 2 is 28. So j hat's going to land here. So notice when we multiplied this matrix by this matrix, we actually went up a dimension. So now I hat has 3 components to it. So it's possible we can jump dimensions. Kind of crazy. But our answer, we're just going to merge these two together. And we have a 6, -6, and 15. And we have a 4, -18, 28. And there we have our 3-row, 2-column matrix. Again, sloppy handwriting, I know. That's why I like to type. All right, part D. Here we're switching the order. And if we check this one, we have 2 rows, 2 columns. We have 2 columns in this one, but here we have 3 rows. So this one has 2 columns. This has 3 rows. The number of columns in this first matrix does not match the number of rows in the second. This matrix multiplication is just simply not possible. So we can't even proceed. If we tried to proceed, we would split this up and we would see that this I hat, we have this extra 5 here. There's nothing to multiply it by. So again, always important to check to make sure the number of columns of the first matrix equals the number of rows in the second. If it's not the case, such as in this example, it's simply not possible. All right, moving on. Part E. Here we have 1 row and 2 columns. We have 2 columns, 2 rows. We can multiply these together. So this one we can multiply together. And when we do that, we're going to get 1 row and 2 columns. So we're going to have 1 row by 2 columns. So let's see. We can break this up. And I hat, we're going to multiply by this matrix here. This is a 1 by 2. This is a row vector here. But we're going to take this 1, -2, and multiply it by the column vector 4, 5. That's going to tell us where I hat ultimately ends up. So we have 4 times 1 plus negative 2 times 5. We get 4 minus 10, which is negative 6. So I hat ends up at negative 6, so it's one dimension. It's a scalar, actually. It's a scalar. For j hat, we have the 1, negative 2 again. That is going to get multiplied by negative 1, 1. And we're going to have 1 times negative 1 plus negative 2 times 1. So we get negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. So we have 1 row, 2 columns. Our answer is this matrix, negative 6, negative 3. All right, our last example takes us into 3 dimensions. And if you're really good working with 3 dimensions and 3-dimensional matrices and transformations, a lot of video games, especially the 3-dimensional video games, make use of 3-dimensional matrix calculations for things like rotating, scaling, and distorting images and all that stuff in 3 dimensions. So I'm not very well with my art abilities in 3 dimensions. So, but here we have 3 by 3 and a 3 by 3. So our number of columns here is 3. Our number of rows in our second matrix is 3. We can multiply them together. Our result is going to have 3 rows and 3 columns. So we're going to get a 3 by 3 result. So here we've talked about I hat and j hat. So logically, hopefully logically, the next one after that would be k hat. So if you're wondering what the third dimensional unit vector is, it's k hat, which is at 0, 0, 1. But don't have to worry. We're going to take I hat, multiply it by this matrix. So hopefully I have enough space. Let me keep the coloring consistent. So we're going to take that matrix. I wish I could just copy and paste. I don't know how to do that in this program, or if it's even possible. It would save a lot of time. Just fast forward this if you get bored. All right, we're going to multiply by 4, negative 1, 1. That's going to be I hat. So we're going to take 4 times this column. And negative 1 times this column. So we can just write it like that. And then 1 times this third column. That's 2. All right, so when we do that, we get 0 minus 2 is negative 2, plus negative 1 is negative 3. We get 16 minus 1 is 15, plus 0 is 15. And then 0 minus a negative 1 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. So there's where I hat ultimately ends up. J hat, let's see if I can actually try this out without copying everything down again. So it's this matrix times 3, 0, 0. Oh, that'll be nice because J hat's going to take 3 times this first column and then 0 everything else out. So we're going to get 3 times 0 is 0, 12, and 0. So J hat, thankfully, is real quick and easy because of all the zeros, but j hat gets sent to 0, 12, 0. Finally, k hat, 0 to negative 2, so it's going to be this 3 by 3 matrix again, so that 3 by 3 matrix times k hat. I'm just doing these quotes to save time. So at least there's a 0. So it's going to be 0 times this first column, which zeroes out. Then we're going to have 2 times this second column. That's going to give us a 4, a 2, and a negative 2. And then we're going to take negative 2. We can just take and add negative 2 times this third column. So negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. And negative 2 times 2 is -4. So adding these together, we get 4 plus 2 is 6, 2 plus 0 is 2, -2 plus -4 is -6. So merging these three together, our I hat is in the first column, -3, 15, and 3. J hat is the second column, 0, 12, 0. And K hat's the third column, 6, 2, -6. Not going to win any awards for penmanship. All right, but that about does it for this video. Thank you for watching.